sharp, sir. Very nice. Yeah. I think it's the first time I've come here around Christmas time and didn't have a jacket on. I figured didn't even need a jacket today. It's not. I mean, it's cold in the morning, real early, but man, it warms up quick. In fact, I wish we'd get some snow.
Yeah, me too.
Yeah. Let's see here. Good morning, one and all. Welcome, everybody. Glad you're here today, and we're gonna do. I'll get to the right picture. There we go. We're gonna do a little Nehemiah, and believe it or not, next week we will jump into Ezra in our study of Ezra Nehemiah, but we won't be in Ezra long, and well, we sort of will be. There's an intro to Ezra that we'll cover next week, and then Ezra and Nehemiah have some of the same information that we'll put all together, and then we'll build the temple. But today we're going to finish building the walls. Okay? Okay. Let me lead us in prayer. Heavenly Father, thanks for your watch care over the week, your blessing to us, the encouragement of the Word, and the opportunity to come together and study. Whether we're here or spread out across America and around the world, we're grateful for it and ask your blessings today. In Jesus' name, amen. So we've been now into our 10th week of building the wall, and you remember, of course, that Nehemiah is the cupbearer of the king, and he has the burden, I guess you would say, to go back and rebuild the walls of a city which lies in ruins and has since the days of Nebuchadnezzar, when Nebuchadnezzar came in and demolished the city and took all the leaders away, and that has been a long time. You had Daniel and Ezekiel and Jeremiah all back there at the beginning, and then after that generation died, you had those like Esther who came along, Esther and Mordecai, and saved the Jewish people. I might add one more thing. We had speaking of the generation that dies off, the whole Babylonian Empire died off, and the Persians came in, the Medes and the Persians, and they took over. So by the time you get to Nehemiah, you've had the Babylonian Empire, you've had the Persian Empire. Daniel lived into the Persian Empire with Cyrus and Darius the Mede. And then you had Esther, and then you had Nehemiah. And Nehemiah has the burden. He asks the king, can we go back and do it? The king says, yeah, go back and do it. As a matter of fact, the king says, I'll pay for it. Here's your blank check. You go, you rebuild the walls. So they go back and they rebuild the walls. And then we got the overview of how that was happening, about how each man kind of did his own section. We got the overview about some of the battles from the outside. We're going to look at some more of those today. Some of the battles from the inside. We're going to look at some more of those today. And the I'll call it miraculous, but when we get there, we'll define miraculous as we get into Nehemiah chapter 6. Today we'll look at verses 1 through 19. And starting out here with verse 1, it says, now it came to pass when Sanballat and Tobiah and Geshem the Arabian. Okay, we've met all three of these people before. None of them are friends. They're all enemies. And they start back, all the way back from chapter 2 is where we see these three. They are, we believe, especially Sanballat, Persian governors of the territory there, of the area. Maybe even Sanballat, it's a little hard to tell, but Sanballat might be the governor of Judea. And So Nehemiah comes in kind of working in his territory. We know how this works when the federal government wants to come into, say, Chicago or California or something like that. The local leaders say, hey, wait a minute, not so fast. And so I think that's probably what we've got there, but we don't have that totally verified. But nonetheless, he's some sort of Persian governmental leader. Tobiah probably as well, although Tobiah is the one that's just called a servant, but we think it's more of a civil servant kind of thing. And then Geshem the Arabian, that's a little farther out to the south that Geshem serves, but we've seen all these three before. None of them are friends of Nehemiah. And as he goes on, there's even more. Not only those three, but the rest of our enemies. You ever wake up in the morning and feel like you're kind of there where I can name my enemies, and then there's some that don't even deserve honorable mention. We'll just put them in the rest of our enemies. So there he goes. So they heard that I had builded the wall. Okay, this is the tense that says, yeah, it's done. They heard it. Now, it's not that it was a secret because they were watching this all along. It's kind of hard to secretly rebuild the walls of a city. And so they had seen this, but here it comes to pass, and they're able to see, okay, I had builded the wall. There was no breach left therein. Let me make that just a little bit larger. There we go. There was no breach left therein, though at the time I had not set up the doors upon the gates. You know, that sounds like a tremendous vulnerability, but the truth is the way ancient gates were found, unfortunately we found the way they were built. Fortunately, we found quite a few of them in archaeological digs from that period of time. The door of the gate is almost incidental. It's the structure of the gate that makes it almost impenetrable, because a gate is, the ones I've seen, I'm going to say they're about the length of this auditorium here. I don't know how long that is. What, 2 miles or something like that? 75 feet, you think? Am I anywhere close there, John? I don't. Okay, let's call it 75 feet. And if you were to imagine this long rectangular room as a gate, and the middle section right here, that's the hallway that people would walk through the gate, but on the sides there's these rooms. And it's just, one room after another, and in a gate like this, they might have 6, 7, 8 rooms. Well, what they've got in those rooms is the soldiers or the attackers to get anyone who comes through. So who cares if they tear down the door and they come through? They've got to get through about 6 or 8 traps before they can get out to the other side. And so they're well fortified. They're built to stop anybody from going through. So he's got the gates built, but I hadn't set up the doors upon the gates. I almost would say that the doors upon the gates, incidentally, as far as I know, we haven't archaeologically found any doors upon the gates, and that's not surprising. They're wooden, they get burned, they get easily taken off, whatever. They corrode over the years. But the doors on the gates are really just decorative. You put pictures on there, you put names on there, that kind of thing, and we don't have that. So almost what he's saying is, hey, I had everything finished. The only thing I didn't have was the curtains over the windows. Okay, but it's a done deal as we come here. Then we come into verse 2, and it tells us that Sanballat and Geshem sent unto me, saying, come, let us meet together in some one of the villages in the plain of Ono. Here's something that you can remember forever, Isaiah. If someone ever wants to meet you in the plain of Ono, say, oh no. This doesn't sound good, to go to the plain of oh no. Now, the plain of oh no, if you happen to know your layout of Israel a little bit, Jerusalem is up on the high point on the mountain, and it goes down one way to the east, down to the Dead Sea, and it goes down the other way to the west, out to the Mediterranean Sea. And towards the Mediterranean Sea, before you get there, as is common before in a lot of places anyway, you come to a plain. Sometimes in the Bible, the larger area is called the plain of Sharon or Sharon, the Rose of Sharon, you may have heard. It's that plains area right before, as it flattens out before you go into the Mediterranean Sea. It's out there. So if you have ever flown into Israel, you flew into Ben Gurion Airport, and Ben Gurion Airport is roughly in this spot, the plain of Ono. Now, let's come out here, let's have a little visit, okay? But immediately, Nehemiah says, they thought to do me mischief. Now, that word probably we should take a little more strongly than Isaiah and Luca doing mischief. Mischief in this sense is they want to probably kill me. They want to get me out of the gates, out of the safe territory. Hey, come on out here. We'll have a little visit. So Nehemiah, it's not his first time around the block. He knows what's going on here. He says, of course you want me to go out there and have a meeting with you rather than you come here and have a meeting. So they sought to do me mischief. And verse 3, I sent messengers unto them saying, I'm doing a great work, so that I cannot come down. Really he's going to give two reasons why I'm not going to go out there. Now, they're in a sense a politically correct answer. I'm not sure that's the way I mean to say that, but Nehemiah doesn't say, as I might want to say, hell will freeze over before I go out there and meet you guys. This is not going to happen. Never. Not today. Not tomorrow. So he gives a little bit nicer, I'll say politically correct answer. I'm doing a great work so that I cannot come down. Okay, I'm busy with other things. The things that I'm doing are more important than whatever it is you want to talk about. That's reason number one. Reason number two, he goes on, why should the work cease whilst I leave it and come down to you? Okay, my work is important and I don't want the work to stop. Therefore, sorry, I can't go out there. Now, again, that's kind of the nice answer, which tells me a little bit that Sanballat and Tobiah and Geshem were probably men of some kind of authority that you at least need to give some niceties as to why you can't come. You all have done the same thing, haven't you, to certain people? Can you come? Help me chop the wood. Well, I would love to, but I'm so busy that day. I've got to, I got to be in Kalamazoo on that day. Sorry, I'd love to, but I can't. And what you really mean is, no way, I'm not going to do that. So he's given that kind of answer that you might give when it's too rude to say no, but you mean no. So he comes out with that answer. So verse 4, they sent unto me 4 times after this sort, and I answered them after the same manner. Now, I don't know, Luke and I were talking the other day about this. I don't know if we should read anything in significance to the fact that there's 4 times that he's asked the question and we're about to have a 5th time. I sort of like to find numerological significance, but in this I can't think of what it is, so I'm just thinking they were persistent. Not once, twice, 3 times, 4 times they come, same kind of deal after the same manner. And so then we come to verse 5, then sent Sanballat his servant unto me, in like manner, the 5th time, with an open letter in his hand. Now, I don't know if they've been using a servant all along, but this time Sanballat sends his servant, but he sends it, he says, with an open letter. Okay, I think we would use the same term today. An open letter is one that, you print it in the newspaper. This is for everybody to see. Typically, an open letter is not really to, it's not your first line of defense. First of all, you would have a closed letter and write the, individual negotiations. But when you're not getting your way and you really want to protest, we're going to put this in the New York Times. So here's an open letter that is being sent. It's almost always for propaganda purposes that you send an open letter. So here in this particular open letter, wherein was written, it is reported among the heathen. Now, we talked about this last week and several other times before. The word heathen doesn't carry its negative connotations that it does today. Just read that as nations, or even as the non-Jews, if you want, the Gentiles. It's reported among the Gentiles, it's reported among the heathen, it's reported among the nations, all the neighbors out there. It says, and Gashmu saith it. Gashmu. Who in the world is Gashmu? We don't know. The King James, you're right, Jeannie. The King James has a marginal note in which it tells us that this is Geshem. Now, the way they go it definitely is written differently, but the King James translators say that it's kind of like, I don't know, John and Jack. We don't do this too much anymore, but back in the days of John F. Kennedy, a lot of people called him Jack Kennedy. And so if you get somebody young over here, and I call John Jack, you'd say, his name's John, not Jack. And I'd say, well, you use Jack in place of John. Everybody knows that you can swap Jack and John together. And the youngsters just have to say, okay, I guess so, if you want. Maybe we should start calling you Jack because we got a lot of Johns.
Maybe it should be the other way.
Maybe it should be the other way. You're older than they are, so. Yeah, okay, you're right. When Jack Smedley comes in here in a little bit. But anyway, I suspect that the King James translators are right here, that this is a version of variation of the name, and we're talking Geshem. Now, if it's not, we don't know who the guy is, and honestly, not a lot's going to rest on it anyway. It's here's this fellow that comes along. So it's reported among the heathen, maybe Geshem, the enemy, or Gashmu, whoever it is, saith it. Probably, I would say that he's well enough known that there's not any kind of info that has to be given about him in this open letter. And it seems to be that he carries a bit of weight with it, I guess, that when you hear, oh, Gashmu says it, that means something. So here's the report, and Gashmu even agrees with it. Gashmu says it, that thou, now that is singular, of course, and it relates to Nehemiah, that you, Nehemiah, and the Jews think to rebel. For which cause thou buildest the wall, that thou mayest be their king, according to these words. Okay, so haven't had any luck getting him out there so that we can kill him. So we then come forth and say, hey, hear ye, hear ye. Let me tell you what everyone's saying. That you, the Jews, Nehemiah, you're working towards a rebellion. You're trying to rebel against the king of Persia. Nehemiah's trying to become king of the Jews. In a sense, this is the same accusation that they gave to to Jesus, of an insurrection. That, he is an insurrectionist. You remember the Jews, we have no king but Caesar, and try to bring this forth. So it's kind of an old habit. You're not loyal. You're trying to bring about insurrection. They bring this up. Now, this is not even new in in the story of Nehemiah. If you go back, I think it's chapter 2, verse 19, but somewhere right in there in the second chapter, you see that right from the beginning they brought this up. Oh, I know why you're here. You're trying to overthrow the Persian government, and obviously what they're trying to do is get more strength. If we can get the Persians upset, if we can get the Persian king about. The problem is that the Persian king had written all the letters of authority, everything that was there. So this is not really going to go very far. But here it is, you're trying to build insurrection. Now, I think because it's an open letter, and this will come into play here in just a moment, why would you write a letter saying, hey, you all are trying to cause an insurrection? When those people know they're not trying to cause an insurrection, in one sense, you would say, look what they think we're trying to do. They don't have a clue. Let's go on. Let's keep rebuilding the wall. Let's get everything done. Let's move on. But in another sense, it would be easy to say that people would read the open letter and say, oh, we're really going to have to be careful here, because if we're not careful, showing our loyalty to the Persians are going to send in their armies, and we're going to end up back like we were under Nebuchadnezzar. They're going to destroy us. They're going to kill us. So the purpose, I think, of the open letter is to get them to be scared. We're coming after you. The Persians are going to be, madder than a rained-on rooster when they find this thing out. And therefore, that's the purpose of the open letter, is to bring fear, which again was no surprise, because that's what they've been trying to do all along. You remember early on, you all can't do anything. A fox would get on this thing and knock the walls over. So constantly they're trying to demean them, to bring them down, to tell them they have no strength, to tell them this can't happen. And these are not, as far as we know, they're not trained warriors. They're not even trained engineers and architects and builders. They're just people who kind of volunteered for the task and said, here it is, we'll go out and do it. So they haven't had a lot of experience with the fake news being aimed at them. So they could easily get scared at this. Yes, ma'am. Very, very, very good comment and illustration. This Gashmu guy right here, could that be a title? And the answer is, yeah, very likely so. I didn't look it up to see what the word actually means, but almost all of those things have a meaning to it. And just like we've talked about with Artaxerxes, Ahasuerus, some of these names that are actually titles, so what Jeannie says is, hey, could this be like the public notice in the newspaper that, hey, here we've got the mayor who says, or somebody on their side. Maybe it's one of them from the inside, maybe it's somebody from the outside, but something official seems to be going on here, enough to scare the people into saying, hey, there's going to be consequences if we keep going this matter. So if we can't get Nehemiah out to kill him, let's get all the people scared where Nehemiah can't accomplish the task, where nothing is going to happen. And so they put out the fake news that they're trying to have this insurrection. Nehemiah wants to be king, and further, he says in verse 7 in this open letter that thou, once again, the thou here is Nehemiah. Thou hast also appointed prophets to preach of thee at Jerusalem, saying, there is a king in Judah. Okay, this again is something that, as far as I know, never happened. There's no evidence that it's happening. But sometimes it doesn't matter if it never happened. You put a block over the face and cover it up and get it out there, and you get the people thinking that it happened. So thou hast appointed prophets to preach of thee. That's not really what prophets preached about, right, is, oh, great Nehemiah. But there's the word here. You get these prophets to preach at Jerusalem, saying, there is a king of Judah, and now shall it be reported to the king according to these words. Okay, just want you to know, this is the chatter out there. This is the talk. This is what everyone says, and Gashmu agrees. And now the king, I think he's talking about back in Darius, back in Persia, the Persian king, the one that you're the cupbearer to the king. Now the king is going to hear these words. So then he says, come now, therefore, and let us take counsel together. It's back to the same thing. Hey, look, Nehemiah, you're really in a tough spot. You need to come out here to the plains of Ono, and you need to visit with us. Maybe we can help you. Maybe we can work through this. Now, of course, Nehemiah knows all along, all of this is at the bottom of how in the world do we get Nehemiah dead? How do we get him out of control? You know, this does tell me one thing, because I, as you know, study a little bit of especially presidential history, and I've been reading lately of Gerald Ford. I had never read a book on Gerald Ford, and so I decided I should do a more modern president of Gerald Ford, and so obviously it has a lot about Nixon in there, in the vice presidential years for Ford and Watergate, and then the pardon that took place. And so what you see is there was a lot of underground work to trying to accomplish what we want on both sides. This always happens. We see it in modern days. We see it in Gerald Ford's days. I think you can go back basically any time in history and say, this is how politics works, is we'll lie about one thing in order to accomplish the thing that we want, and we're going to, but at the bottom, you just got to know, what's the real story here? What do they want? And the real story is they don't want the walls built, and they want Nehemiah dead. So they give this, okay, nice, hey, come let us reason. We can help you out. Let's counsel together. All you need to do is come out to the plains of Ono. And then you might find, oops, he died on the way. Sorry about that. Who could have seen that coming? But anyway, we come to verse 8 as Nehemiah responds. Then I sent unto him, saying, there are no such things as thou sayest, but thou feignest them out of thine own heart. Okay, what he says is fake news. That is not real. You have made all this up. And he becomes pretty blunt here in his answer that this is not real. For they all made us afraid. Okay, now he's going back in time here just a moment, but this it's also the purpose of this whole letter is let's make them afraid. Let's make them think there is no way we can go up. It's David against Goliath. We're not going to win here. We're going to lose this thing. They made us all afraid. Now, he's really talking about in the past. They made us all afraid, saying their hands shall be weakened from the work that it be done. Now, that's when you go back and you remember, I think it's chapter 4 then, you remember that they started out, you all can't do this, you're too weak, you're too uneducated, there's no way, you're never going to accomplish this, a fox could knock it down. That's been their goal all along, make us afraid. That's what they're trying to do now, saying their hands shall be weakened from the work that it be done. And then Nehemiah comes in, as he so often does, and he just has this little prayer right there, if you will. And his prayer is, now therefore, O God, strengthen my hands. Okay, they want us to be afraid. God, strengthen my hands, strengthen my resolve. Keep me going on this issue. Don't let me or the people be afraid. Now, verse 10 introduces this new guy here, Shemaiah. There we go. Shemaiah It is a Jewish name. All the names that end in AH, including Tobiah, are Jewish names. That's the ending for Yahweh or God. It's typically the either IAH is always Yahweh is my something. I don't remember the root here to say what it is, but it's a Jewish word. So I, Nehemiah, came to the house of Shemaiah, the son of Delaiah, the son of Mechatabeel. There we go. Who was shut up. Now, we don't know anything about this guy other than what we have right here. He appears, however, to be some kind of leader. I called him here a false prophet, and I'm going to go with false prophet, that he's trying, we don't know he's a false prophet. I don't know. I'm not sure that Nehemiah knows he's a false prophet, but it says he was shut up. Don't you wish some people would be shut up? No commentary needed. Shut up, I think there's a number of ways you can go here. I don't think it means he's under arrest. I think it means he's hiding. Here is Shemaiah that I am going to say has feigned fear. He is, let's call him a religious leader among the people. Maybe he's one of the priests, something like this. And Shemaiah comes, and here's this open letter. And Shemaiah says, the sky is falling, the sky is falling. And he goes and shuts himself up. And Nehemiah is going to him. This is the way, again, I'm envisioning it. Nehemiah is going to him and saying, hey, Shemaiah, why are you so scared? There's nothing to be scared of here. This has been going on forever. This is not real stuff. So Shemaiah, it says, was shut up. And he, now this is Shemaiah that's speaking here. Shemaiah said, let us meet together in the house of God within the temple. Okay, we have to wait there. We have to pause for just a second, don't we? Because our whole premise on putting Nehemiah first is that the temple hasn't been rebuilt. So how are we going to meet there? This is the hardest verse to deal with when you put Nehemiah before Esther. Now, we have consistently put Nehemiah before Esther. I won't go through all the argumentation again, but we've shown lots of reasons why Nehemiah, the building of the walls, needs to come before Esther, the building of the temple. But this looks like, okay, that's kind of problematic for that. Let's meet in the house of God within the temple, it says right there. How are you going to meet in something that hasn't been built yet? Well, when you go back to 2 Kings and you see the destruction of the temple, this very temple, when you see the destruction, what it says is the walls were torn down, the walls of the city. The rest of the city was just burned. Now, when you've got a massive structure like the first temple was, Solomon's temple, built out of stone, you have to say, you know, it can go through quite the fire and it's still going to be there. And it can even go through decades of nobody being there, no use, neglect, and it would still be there. My guess is here we try to take care of our building mostly. But, the house part of it anyway has been here for 100 years and still there. If we neglected it for 70, 80 years, my guess is you would at least be able to see that there was a building there. Might even be a room or two that lasted, there's something still there. Who knows how much of it would be there. And this is a mud house. That's a rock house, okay? So I think what you've got here is, come, let us meet in the ruins of the house of God within the temple. It's not been rebuilt. It's not functional. They don't have the altar there. They don't have the priesthood coming and going. Now, you might say, you see, this kills your theory right here. The problem is that it's easier to deal with this killer than it is to deal with all the other killers on the flip side. It's like, okay, I got one thing to deal with here. I got 8 things to deal with over here. And I think I think our argument is much easier to convince the ladies and gentlemen of the jury. But a lot of people don't want to hear the argument because they've been told all their life that Ezra came before Nehemiah, and therefore it does. But we obviously dig a little more deeply than that. So I think this Shemaiah guy is saying, okay, let's go into the ruins of the house of God within the temple. Let us shut up the doors of the temple, for they will come and slay thee. Yea, in the night they will come to slay thee. Okay, here's Shemaiah hiding, feigning. I know that he's a fake because I've read the next couple of verses. He's a fake. Oh, they're coming to get us. They're coming to get us. Nehemiah comes to say, calm down, calm down. And he says, we got to hide. Let's hide in the temple. That's a good place. Let's hide in the temple. Because they are going to come for you. In the night they will come and slay thee. I like Nehemiah's response. And I said, should such a man as I flee? Now, that is, it's not machismo, is that the word? It's not toxic masculinity. You know, what did Muhammad Ali used to say? I'm fast as something like a bee. I dance. Dance like a butterfly, is it? I dance like a butterfly and sting like a bee. I am Muhammad Ali, or something like that. You guys missed the good old days. Anyway, this is not that kind of, nobody can take me down. This is, I'm the captain of the boat, and the captain of the boat doesn't run. Look, Shemaiah, you telling me to go hide? Maybe you can go hide, but I can't go hide. I'm the one that's got to get on the white horse and be right out front. And so he's just recognizing his position here. Should such a man as I flee? And who is there that being as I am would go into the temple to save his life? I will not go in. Now, this might all be the same thing to say again, look, I'm the temple, I'm the leader here, I can't go hide. I can't go hide under a rock, I can't go hide under the temple. This is not what a leader does. I got to get out there, I got to be up front. I think that the fact that he is, the second part of that verse, who is there that being as I am, here's the key, that being as I am would go into the temple to save his life. I think he's saying, a man like me can't even go into the temple. I'm no Levite. I'm no priest. The temple is the place for the priests. You remember the Old Testament temple, it wasn't a place that everybody came. Only the Levites could go in there. He's not one of those. So I think he really talks about 2 issues. 1, I'm the leader. 2, I'm not the priest. And we'll build that argument here in just a second. But here he says, lo, I perceived. Now we're going to see perceived here in just a moment, but as you can imagine, perceive, as you know, perceive is not, this one's right out on the surface. This is, I'm reading between the lines and I can tell what's going on here. Just like I'm not going out to the plains of Ono because I know what you're trying to do. I perceive this, the perception. So here, the perception, God had not sent him. Okay, Shemaiah, you are acting as if you are a prophet. Here is a word from God, but God did not send you. I perceive this. But that he, Shemaiah, pronounced this prophecy. Now, that's why I called him a prophet. He pronounced this prophecy against me. For Tobiah and Sanballat had hired him. Now, I'm sure that by the time Nehemiah wrote, he had all the facts. He knew what happened, that this guy was a paid fraidy cat. He is trying to elicit fear. He's doing it for hire. It puts him in the same category as Balaam, the prophet. I don't think that this guy is going to make it into our 30 Prophets of the Bible series, but here he is, a fake prophet. In some sense, I'm going to say that people must see him to be as a prophet, and yet here he is. He's getting paid by the enemy, Tobiah and Sanballat, and to prophesy against me. That is, to get me to be scared. Therefore was he hired. Or here's the reason that he was hired, that I should be afraid and do so and sin. Now that right there, do what? Hide in the temple. And hiding in the temple would be what? It's a 3-letter word. Sin. If I hide in the temple, that is going to be sin. Now, again, maybe you could just read, oh, it's sin because he's the leader. He's not, he's supposed to be strong and courageous out front. I doubt that. I don't think, even in our world, we wouldn't call that sin. We would call it cowardly. And to be the cowardly lion, is not sinful. It's just cowardly. You can do better than that. But I do think the going into the temple would be sin. Now you say, wait a minute, I thought the temple was just ruins. It's not operational. It's not working. Why can't anybody go in there and do that? I'll tell a somewhat unrelated story. But a few years ago, I don't know, it's probably been 7-8 years ago now, I went up to Cuchera in Colorado. You all know Cuchera, beautiful place. They had at one point a ski resort there, but the ski resort closed down. I think it opened and closed and opened and closed and opened and closed because you don't put a ski resort on the sunny side of the mountain. But anyway, they never could make it. It closed down. They had the place where you rent your skis and your boots and all this kind of stuff. The building was still there. You could tell where the lifts were because the towers were still there. And nobody's there. I'm sure somebody owns it. I don't know. But we walked in. And it was kind of like a ghost town because all the skis were still there. All the boots were still there. Even lift tickets scattered around all over the place. And, we were all walking back through the back room and all that kind of stuff, looking at all this stuff. And might have been fun to take some skis or something, but I'm like, what do I need with out-of-date skis? So there it all is out there. Now, there's a time in which that would have been, I don't know, we'll call it breaking and entering. It wasn't breaking and entering now because there's no door, there's no windows, there's me and the coyotes, that kind of, anybody can walk in there, whatever. Now, this is not the case in the temple. Even today, you know that the temple has not stood, the second temple, has not stood since AD 70 when the Romans came and destroyed it. And unlike the first temple, they didn't just burn it down. They took one stone off another. There's not one stone left standing there where the temple is. But Orthodox Jews to this day will not go onto Temple Mount. Not because, hey, the temple's up there, we can't go in the temple. Because the temple's not there. But because that's the place the temple was. And somewhere up there, and we don't know exactly where, somewhere is the holy place and the Holy of Holies, and that's only for the high priest, and we don't want to be accidentally walking through the Holy of Holies. That would be sin. Okay, I think that he's saying the same thing is, even though that temple is not operational, for me to go do it, not only would it be cowardly, but it would be sin. I can't go there. It would be sin. And then, he says, they might have matter for an evil report that they might reproach me. Okay, if I do this, they're going to have something against me. I got to dot my I's and cross my T's, or cross my T's and dot my I's. Whatever. I got to be very careful here. So, no way. And he closes out and says, may God think thou, my God, he closes out in a prayer, think thou upon Tobiah and Sanballat according to their works, and on the prophetess Noadiah and the rest of the prophets that would have put me in fear. Okay, so that was, again, their job. Get him afraid, then he's going to mess up. If we can get him afraid, he'll mess up. Let's keep trying to get him afraid. Verse 15, the wall was finished in the 25th day of the month of Elul. The nice thing about that is we didn't know exactly the day it started, but now we can count back. 52 days it happened. Now, how is the wall finished in 52 days? It's a massive wall, for one, in terms of its width at the base, in terms of its height, all of the things. You know, how do you do this in 52 days? I think there are a number of things. But before I tell you those, let me go ahead and read verse 16, because there's a phrase out of there I want. It came to pass when all our enemies heard thereof, and all the heathen that were about us saw these things, they were much cast down in their eyes, for they perceived, there's that word a second time, for they perceived that this work was wrought of our God. Okay, 52 days from start to finish seems kind of miraculous to me, right? And so they say they perceived, they could see it. This is a work of God. This work was wrought of God. Now, as we have looked at it, however, it is in one sense, let's call it, well, I think we can do it this way. We can call it a work of God without calling it a miracle. I'm going to take a miracle is when God changes the supernatural, or he changes the natural into supernatural. So, for example, he stops the Red Sea, they walk through on dry land. He brings in the Red Sea, the Pharaoh's army gets destroyed. That's a supernatural work. An axe head floats. That's a supernatural work. It's going against the laws of physics. There's nothing here that was going against the laws of physics. There's nothing here that was supernatural, but nonetheless, it was a work of God. Just like I think that we would say that Esther and her going before the king and saving the Jewish people, that was a work of God. In fact, the Jewish people celebrate it today in the holiday of Purim. This is when there was a work of God saving us, but he did it kind of behind the scenes. He worked through Esther, who comes forth at such a time as this, Mordecai in the right place at the right time, and opens his mouth and says something and ends up saving the Jews. And Esther going into the beauty contest too. So this is the kind of work of God that this is. In this time period, God was not directly working miraculously, but that doesn't mean his work is not getting done. Now, how do you build the walls in 52 days? I think there's a couple of things that come into it. One is you get government money. That helps, doesn't it? And we do have to look back at this and say, okay, the Persian king was behind this thing. He provided the wood, the material, the permissions, the king's forest, all of those things that we saw in the beginning. That they didn't have to do fundraising. They got a grant, okay? A government grant. That helps. But in this case, it's kind of a work of God. This is sort of the enemy government giving you a grant to do this. Hey, who'd have thunk it, right? And then they had the degree of cooperation that we've seen all through the book, you know, that doesn't matter if the enemy is on the outside or the enemy is within. They immediately get together and say, we got to fix this because we got a bigger thing. We're not going to deal with that right now. We're taking care of these walls. So there's a unity of spirit that comes together. That was the work of God. There's, every man has a brick in one hand and a sword in the other. They're ready to take on whatever. They're they're going to work, shifts. They're barely going to, sleep, and they're going to sleep with their clothes on and be ready to go, ready to fight, ready to build, whatever it is. Okay, that's how they did it in 52 days. And it was wrought of our God. By the way, I think that this is the way that it's the same way God is working today. God definitely works today, but I would say today we don't see as much of, if any, of the directly miraculous work like you read, Jesus walking on the water. That's directly a miraculous work, raising people from the dead, this kind of thing. But what we do see is, the work of God nonetheless. As a matter of fact, even today, I mean, we could talk and give all sorts of stories even across the room here of, one who says, hey, I was I was sick, but now I'm well. I was lame, but now I walk. I was blind, but now I see. And we attribute that to a work of God. But then at the same time, as we look into it, we say, hey, look at what medicine does today. Wow, this stuff healed me. People used to die of this, and now here I am walking and healthy and whole. Still a work of God, but done very much in a different way. And with that, I've got to quit and do 17, 18, and 19 next week. Which actually works kind of well anyway, because 17, 18, 19 is sort of a bridge from the next thing. So now we've got the walls built, 52 days. It was a work of God. The enemy did not succeed. So the enemy is going to go on vacation and say, I guess I lost that one. Nope. They'll keep at their work on this and keep going. Okay, let's stop right there. We'll pick up on verse 17 next week, and let's see. We'll, here in just a moment, go into our worship service and do the mysterious magi and learn a little bit about these Persian magi again. Let me lead us in a word of prayer. Heavenly Father, thanks for the Bible study this morning and the encouragement and blessing it is. And as we come to worship here in a little bit, we pray that it's also a blessing and an encouragement, and that you would strengthen us from it and through it, and our day together with you and other loved ones here would be honorable to you and a blessing to us. In Jesus' name, amen. Okay, we'll take a little break. Those of you online, we'll have a new link for you here in just a moment. God bless you. Thank you all.